This is the most famous Overland Gladiator in the world. It just so happens to belong to my good buddy, Shaun, from The Story Till Now. And he is one of the rare people that actually has more miles on dirt than pavement with one of these vehicles. So we're gonna go through this vehicle and we're gonna pinpoint most of the things we've done and that he's done to make it work and be the tool he uses to bring you all that great content every Monday or whichever day he decides to drop the video.
My name is Shaun, and this is The Story Till Now.
So let's get the basics out of the way. It used to be a 2022 3.6 liter Gladiator Rubicon in Sarge Green. If you look behind me, you can really only tell it's a Gladiator. That's about all we got left. First things first, we knew where we were going with it before we started. We knew the 3.6 power plant wasn't going to survive. So we transplanted an America's Most Wanted conversion 426 into this, pushing 600 horsepower because, well, nothing gets down the service roads like 600 horsepower. And of all the engine conversions we've done and all the ones that I thought were gonna have some issues or hiccups, this was the one and the client I figured I was gonna have the biggest headache with. And guess what? This thing's been flawless. It has had the most abuse out of any America's Most Wanted conversion, and it just keeps going. Like, it is amazing. Needless to say, anybody can be wrong. I just proved it. So let's start at the front. Obviously, this is not your stock Dana 44 axle. So when we did this, we did America's Most Wanted Dana 60 front and rear axle package, which consists of an axle they have had built for their needs under the specs they wanted. And the rear is a modified Ultimate 60 for the most part. So we have the locking hubs, we've got the full float rear, and it can properly handle 40s. Yes, I know the internet tells you you can put 40s on stock axles all you want, but people do stupid things all the time. Can't stop them. Pretty sure these are XD Grenade beadlocks or KMC Grenade beadlocks, same company. So they've been on here. Great solid beadlock. We've got 40-inch Toyo Open Country MT tires. They basically are almost bulletproof. Basically very similar to the Nitto Trail Grappler since they're sister companies. As for the suspension, we started with the suspension in one way because we didn't have the engine yet and he needed to go wheeling. So we did a full Teraflex lift on this with, I think we did the 4.5-inch Teraflex lift with the Falcon adjustable 3.3 shocks. We then did the control arms, track bar brackets, sway bar links, the whole 9 yards. Then once we put the engine in, we swapped the coils out for the America's Most Wanted coils that hold the engine better. I'm pretty sure we swapped the shocks out for the AMW tuned Falcon shocks. And then in the rear down the road, we eventually put in the heavy-duty anti-rock sway bar, definitely a must-have if you're one of those overloaded overlanders. We also have put Dobinson's heaviest-duty 3-inch spring in this. And I know you're telling me, how are you only doing a 3-inch spring fitting a 40-inch tire? I'll tell you, we put a big-ass spacer underneath it, and then we modified the fenders. So you can clearly look in here, and you'll see that we have Metalcloak fenders, Evo Manufacturing bomber rockers on it. Front and rear bumpers are from Next Venture Motorsports and are fully aluminum and lightweight to help make up for a lot of the other things that have been bolted on. We have extended brake lines, we have front and rear, obviously bigger brakes which came with the axles, and underneath, front to back, we have Next Venture Motorsports aluminum skid plates with that cutting board material over top of them so you can just slide over and it doesn't gouge the aluminum. We've added speed bumps to the front in case you have a cross ditch that came around the corner you missed, and you'll hit that pretty hard, especially with all the power and horsepower you're flying with. The beautiful wrap on here, or creative, is done by Onyx Off-Road. If you haven't heard of Onyx, you haven't used a mapping program yet, because that's the go-to mapping software. It is phenomenal. Give it a try. Clearly, he likes KC Light. There's a lot of them. We've got the Gravity Titan bar we put on Paul's two-door. We've got the nice Flex Era 3s that we put on my Jeep. The Flex Era 4s that we also did on my bumper. Of course, he's got a Warn winch. What other winch would you buy? With some Factor 55 Gucci items like the Ultra Hook and the Fair Lead that never corrodes in Canada. It's amazing the coating they use on this stuff. Wish everything would be hard anodized. He's also got a rack, so he's got the Starlink mounted, so he can always have internet for streaming Netflix or whatever he does when he's camping. And then the GoFast Camper Pro. This is the new GoFast Camper. It's got the new latches that have the covers to keep the crap out of them. It's got nice new machined pieces. It's got their logos there. They've embossed their logo into here. It's got lighting inside. It's got new track, all kinds of stuff. And it just, realistically, it's hard to beat a GoFast Camper for price, weight, and styling. It definitely looks like it's meant to be on something that can go fast, and 600 horsepower will definitely help you go faster. So a lot of custom things inside here in this aluminum box. A good buddy of ours over at Modular Rack managed to rejig a planner diesel heater into here, and thus he's had no issues with diesel heating because it's a good Webasto diesel heater, not one of the Amazon ones. It gets fresh air from in here. There's a vent put in. It puts the exhaust right out under the bed, so you don't have to worry. It has tubing that goes into a nice vent in the floor, and you can just control it from upstairs, and the diesel's down here mounted to the side. Now currently this is in winter mode, and yes, Canada does get some winter, just not near us. So we originally mounted this Goose Gear fridge and stove slide out in here a while ago. He doesn't have a fridge in here right now because he just leaves the beer outside, but eventually he'll get his stove in here because he does have a nice stove. We made these giant aluminum blocks that are just solid to hold this up so it clears the tailgate when it opens, because you don't want to hit your tailgate, because he's got this nice tailgate table on here. You can sit and cook and carve meat or do whatever thing people do. Just be careful. They're usually slippery no matter what brand they are. We've got Molly mounted in there so he can have his fuel cans, because when you have a V8 that takes 91 octane and spits out 600 horsepower, you better carry some fuel cans. Obviously, you can't fit the 40-inch tire underneath the truck, so it's inside here. Unlike on his Ram. We did not put the whole bicycle carrier, tire carrier thing, because if you've ever had one on a Gladiator, it basically ruins how the vehicle drives. And we had it on ours, our old Eco Diesel Con with the Gorilla on the side. Paul lasted 2 days with it. It just ruined, because of the cantilever weight, how it drove completely. So the 40 had to go inside. And though we added him some it looks like it's just mounted to cargo rails and stuff. It is not. We made brackets that are reinforced on the outside of the bed so it can't pull through the bed, and it's mounted down to the bottom tie down. So it's mounted back and down, so it's not moving anywhere, because you don't want a flying 40-inch tire in a bad situation. But all in all, you've got the amazing GoFast Camper on the Trail Destroyer. See, these aren't factory tail lights. He didn't have factory tail lights for a while. He put on the Oracle ones. They did nothing but fail constantly. The amount of times we had to replace them or warranty them, and that was not an easy job with that company. Stay clear. These are by Combat Off-Road. They've been getting beat to death here. They fit decent. I think Teddy also has a set of these on his vehicle because he had the Oracles with nothing but problems. When you live in BC and Canada and you're off-roading in the trees, you need something that's not going to stick out and get caught by trees all the time. No Overland filmographer's Gladiator is complete without a place to charge your many, many, many camera batteries. So we originally had a full Goose Gear delete, so we've now modified it because it wasn't enough. We had to fit the giant lithium batteries that are under the other side of the seat. So what we did was, this is the regular 40%. We got that here, and we wanted to make sure this would be a perfect landing pad to strap down the DJI Inspire, and it fits perfectly here and lives here. So it's always quick at the ready for those cinematic shots. The other side, we took off all the brackets that seat it, and we had custom aluminum, thick 1/4-inch aluminum bracing, so we could raise up the entire platform a good 6 to 8 inches. Now we had room to put all the major batteries underneath and all the wiring we had to do. Then we made a back plate out of 1/4-inch aluminum that you'll see back here that mounts all the RedArc systems that charge and control everything. Then we had an aluminum shelving unit made filled with camera foam to put all the chargers for everything from the DJI stuff to the chainsaw battery to your phone. There's surge protecting power bars, there's literally everything, and everything has its own cutout place so that hopefully if you hit the brakes hard enough you don't get hit in the head with a battery, because that chainsaw battery will kill you. It's huge. But all in all, we've got it all organized in here as best possible the way he asked us to lay it out, and then our time frame dictates how it looks, because you only have so much time when you're on the road once a week making sure there's a video and content. So we did the best we could in the time. The only thing I'd probably do differently, if I had the time, I would have sent all the aluminum pieces out for powder coating. But unfortunately, we didn't have the time back when we did this. And just think, if you're just getting home from a long trip, you want to make sure your batteries aren't going to die. He does have solar, and the solar is plugged into all the stuff. But if you're there, or say you just stopped in at a KOA on your trip so you could use the showers, we made this bracket and mounted a Noco plug, which then all makes its way down into the RedArc so that it can charge off Sure Power, just in case. Looks like it came with the rack. Now we're in the most popular or important part of the Jeep, and that's the cockpit. That's where he spends most of his time, obviously. So up here above my head, we have the touchscreen S-Pod, which is going to allow us to control everything, all the lights, bumper lights, light bars, rock lights, all that kind of thing. We've got the face-off for our VHF radio right here, and realistically, it was the easiest mounting, and it's up out of the way because we have a lot of other things going. We have the nice red light for night vision. He's diffused it. I've diffused mine in my Jeep too, just to cut. It's super bright, so I like to diffuse it a little bit so it doesn't blind me. Up here, we've got the newest iPad mini mounted up here so he can use his Onyx, watch movies, whatever while he's driving. So that's here. We then have this arm back here, which you've all seen that view that he uses with his action camera that just shoots forward. That's coming from this. And then we have USB charging ports here so he can charge the camera. We've got one up here as well. So all of those runs through the factory power and all that stuff. The Crow, which is designed and manufactured by EPIC, is holding all the important goods, basically. Up here, we obviously have the 67 Designs rail, magnet mount for his phone, another action camera mount for a different view, controls for his Osmo up here. Everything's just at the ready and ready to go. We've got his mic so he can talk. Everything's just nice and clean and mounted the way it's easiest for him. And obviously at the end of a day of his trail, he just wants to get home after you've seen what he's done. So he's got to air up his tires, and thus he just throws his airlines here because he just does not have time to put them back in the bag. You knew I was going to take this for a drive, so get in and let's go. Of course I was going to take this out for a drive. It's a beautiful day here in BC, surprisingly, for March. It's sunny, there's no snow on the road, and I got 600 horsepower under my foot. Let's not get ourselves pulled over. Let's go. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that'd get old. That just must be enjoyable. He clearly enjoys it because he's already put 90,000 kilometers on this Gladiator. So the nice thing about driving this Gladiator is there is never a minute where you're like, am I gonna have enough power to pass this guy in front of me? Or am I gonna make it up that hill on the highway? It just goes, and it sounds amazing doing it. The downside, obviously, with anything that makes a lot of good sounding noise and has a lot of power, it uses a lot of fuel. The nice thing about Jeeps is you can customize them any way you want. I don't think there's a vehicle on the planet with more available options. Now, this thing has hydro assist, so steering is effortless. There's a little bit of slop in the steering that does nothing, but it's very minor, and that you get that with hydro assist on a lot of vehicles, or you get that on a vehicle that's had a lot of off-road miles put into it. It will wear in the steering gear and all that other stuff. But all in all, the steering wheel's pretty much straight while we're driving. Got a little bit of body sway, but not as much as other vehicles I've driven. We've done a lot of things to help prevent that with the weight of the camper and everything, so it does drive really nice. I've driven several vehicles that have like an Alucab canopy camper on it, and they're all over the place because it's very hard to compensate for that amount of weight load and gear that some people do carry, but Shaun's isn't that bad. These axles are 72-inch wide axles, so we do have a much more firmly planted undercarriage, which helps and hinders. Like, there's a pro and a con to everything you do. Now, running 40s, in my opinion, requires upgraded axles. With that comes more maintenance. It's not a, like, I've got big axles, I can handle anything you throw at. You still have to keep up with the fact that you now have locking hubs. There's another serviceable component you're going to have to take apart so that it doesn't fail you one day. Because there's a lot of little pieces, and though they are die-hard products and the parts are made back in the 70s, you still need to check them and maintain them. It's just like changing gear oil. It's something you need to maintain and keep an eye on. You should always, if you're doing as much off-roading as Shaun, you got to pull your diffs apart and just make sure everything's still okay after definitely a couple trips, at least a couple times a year. You never know what you might find. Now, these lockers happen to be air lockers. The other downside to air lockers is sometimes they like to have the fluid pushed back up the airline, which ends up coming out at the pump, which is not the end of the world, and it's easy to clean it out, but it's one of the main reasons we don't recommend you use the Kraken system to run your air lockers, because one, you've got to add all that extra pieces that the twin compressor needs to run air lockers, and two, if anything ever does happen, that's fluid in your Jeep. Now, if you heard that, that was half throttle out of a dead stop, spinning 40-inch tires with a Dana 60 axle and all his Overland gear in the back. So needless to say, we still have power to spare. Though this may not be how I would outfit my interior or a vehicle, it's how it works for Shaun and does exactly what he does so that he can do what he does so well and bring you that amazing cinematic content. That concludes my messing around with this Jeep today. Thankful to Shaun that wasn't really using it. At least he looked like he was about to load it, and then I took it. But regardless, if you don't know of this Gladiator, you clearly don't use YouTube at all. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, do all that YouTube crap, add some comments in. If you know anything you think we should be doing differently, or any other vehicles you think we should go after, or people, by all means, in the comments. Somebody at Epic reads them, and somebody might actually answer them. Stay tuned. I don't really follow maps, so I just usually follow one of the people in front of me that I really hope knows how to follow a map, and that's how I get where I'm going. Worst case scenario, if I had to, I'd figure it out, but I rely on my friends to be smarter at that than I am. A wise man once said, you know, do what you're good at, pay people to do what you're not. I fix stuff when shit hits the fan, so that's my ability.